I sat at the head of the long, polished dining table, the familiar weight of 100 unspoken expectations pressing down on me like the thick aroma of roasted turkey and sage that filled the room. Around me, the Butler family gathered, laughter bubbling up like a practiced melody, but the tune always felt off-key to me. Scarlett, with that sharp smile and sparkling eyes, commanded the room effortlessly, as if the spotlight was hers by divine right. "Taylor, congrats on the promotion," she said, her voice dripping with a sweetness that barely hid the venom beneath. "But you're still just a teacher, right? Not quite shining like some." The words landed like stones in my chest. I forced my lips into a tight smile, swallowing the lump that rose in my throat. I was the one who held this family together, paying bills quietly, smoothing over fights, sending money when emergencies struck. Yet tonight, as always, it felt like I was invisible, a ghost at my own family's feast. My hands rested on the table, fingers curling around the edge of the linen napkin, and I thought about the folder tucked away in my bedroom drawer. It was my secret power, my silent rebellion, an archive of receipts, bank transfers, emails, and notes detailing every sacrifice I'd made for this family. I had painstakingly documented it all. The thousands I'd given without complaint, the times I'd swallowed my pride to patch up their messes. I kept it not out of spite, but because I had to remember my worth when no one else would. The tension simmered beneath my calm exterior like a storm waiting to break. Something had to change, but for now, I said nothing. I offered a nod and a smile, vowing silently that I would no longer be invisible. The roots of all this pain stretched back to a Christmas morning etched deep in my memory. I was 16, standing awkwardly in the living room as Scarlett tore open the shiny bow on a brand new car. The sleek red paint gleamed under the Christmas lights, and the smile on her face was effortless, radiant. Meanwhile, I was handed a stack of responsibilities by my parents, expectations to help with the household, manage my grades, and never complain. My father's proud gaze was fixed on Scarlett, his golden child, while my own small victories were met with a dismissive shrug. I remember my mother's words, cold and casual. "You should be grateful your sister is the star. That's what matters." At the time, I told myself it was my duty to be the dependable one, the quiet backbone of this family. I rationalized their neglect, convinced that supporting them silently was the only way to keep us together. Yet, every gift Scarlett received, every praise she earned, felt like a wedge driving deeper between us. I became the forgotten one, expected to sacrifice without acknowledgement. That day marked the beginning of a toxic legacy that haunted every family gathering I endured. Over the years, my sacrifices piled up like unpaid debts that no one bothered to repay. I secretly fronted the $25,000 down payment on the family's vacation home, a place where Scarlett laughed and boasted as if it was all hers. I covered $40,000 of my brother Daniel's medical bills when he needed surgery, quietly slipping checks to doctors and pharmacies while the family never once thanked me. And then there was the $85,000 I loaned my parents over the past decade, money they claimed was just in case, but was spent on luxury trips and Scarlett's designer clothes. On top of that, I gave up my own vacations, my evenings out with friends, to care for Grandma when she fell ill, sacrificing my own happiness to keep the family afloat. Through it all, Ethan, my husband, has been my anchor. He listens without judgment, reminding me that I don't have to carry this burden alone. He admires my secret power, that meticulous folder of evidence I keep tucked away, and encourages me gently to stand up for myself. Still, when I confront Scarlett, she just smirks, dismissing my efforts as obligations, and mocks me for being so serious. Our family dynamic feels like a cruel play where I'm the invisible martyr, Scarlett the brilliant star, and the rest of them eager to keep the script unchanged. Last Sunday, in front of the whole family and several cousins I barely knew, Scarlett's words cut deeper than any knife. "Taylor's so good at losing money," she sneered, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "She probably spent your inheritance already." The room erupted in laughter, but my heart shattered into silent pieces. Her words weren't just cruel, they were calculated to humiliate and erase me in one fell swoop. My mother smiled awkwardly, eyes flickering away, while Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair, clearly unsure how to respond. I felt the familiar sting of shame crawl up my spine, the heat of tears I refused to shed. But this time, instead of retreating into silence, I found my voice, quiet but firm. "You don't know the whole story," I said, locking eyes with Scarlett. Her scoff was immediate, and she quickly changed the subject, leaving me standing there, wounded but unresolved. Inside, a seed of doubt took root, a fragile thought that maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to accept this invisibility forever. Yet, uncertainty held me back, a silent question hanging in the air. How do you fight a family that's determined to keep you invisible? The moment I showed even the smallest flicker of resistance, Scarlett pounced like a vulture sensing weakness. It was subtle at first, whispers that felt like needles piercing my skin. I caught snippets of conversations where my name was dragged through the mud, though always just out of earshot enough to keep me guessing. "Taylor's been reckless with money again," Lisa, our cousin, repeated one afternoon, as if rehearsing a script Scarlett had handed her. Even some family friends I once trusted began to glance at me with suspicion, their smiles tight and eyes narrowing behind polite nods. I was becoming a pariah, a character in Scarlett's carefully woven narrative of deceit. One evening, I overheard Scarlett's voice on the phone through the thin walls of Mom's room. "Mom, you know Taylor always exaggerates everything. She loves playing the victim," Scarlett said, her tone dripping with faux concern. "She's trying to make herself the hero of her own story, but it's all lies." The coldness in her voice sent a shiver down my spine. Our mother's quiet replies, soft murmurs of doubt and hesitant agreement, made my heart twist painfully. It was as if I had become a ghost in my own family, my truth erased and replaced with lies. At home, the atmosphere shifted palpably. The usual warmth was replaced by an icy distance, the kind that gnaws at you quietly, but relentlessly. My parents, once distant but neutral, now seemed to lean into Scarlett's version of events, their eyes flicking away when I spoke, their smiles tight and unconvincing. Daniel barely looked at me, his silence a tacit endorsement of Scarlett's campaign. I felt the walls closing in, every interaction a reminder that I was on the outside, no longer the family's backbone, but its scapegoat. I fought to keep my composure, swallowing the rising tide of hurt and betrayal. Each day, Scarlett tightened her grip on the family narrative, playing the innocent daughter so convincingly that even I sometimes doubted my own memories. Her charm was a mask that protected her from scrutiny, while I was left exposed, vulnerable. The whispered rumors, the sideways glances, the isolation, it all coalesced into a suffocating fog. Yet beneath the surface, a quiet fire sparked in me. I refused to be swallowed whole, even if the family had already chosen sides. Despite the pain, I knew I needed to try something different. If confrontation only bred more silence and scorn, maybe there was a way to break the cycle with honesty and calm. I arranged a meeting with Mom and Dad, hoping that a face-to-face conversation might peel back the layers of misunderstanding. Sitting across from them in the dimly lit living room, I laid out my carefully gathered evidence: receipts, bank statements, emails, proof of every quiet sacrifice and financial support I had extended. "I've supported this family quietly for years," I said, my voice steady, though my hands trembled slightly. "All I want is recognition and respect." The room was heavy with silence, my words hanging fragilely in the air. Scarlett wasn't going to let me reclaim space so easily. The moment she burst in, tears shimmering in her eyes, she twisted the narrative effortlessly. "You make everything about you," she accused, her voice breaking as if wounded. "You're trying to divide us, to make us fight each other." My parents exchanged glances, their faces softening with sympathy for Scarlett. To them, her tears and trembling voice were proof enough. My evidence was dismissed as overblown and a drama I was trying to create. The family friend mediating the conversation urged us all to let bygones be bygones, clearly siding with Scarlett's version of peace, one that required my silence. I left that room feeling smaller than ever, the weight of invisibility pressing harder. My attempt at peace had shattered, and I was left alone with the cold realization that truth wasn't enough in this family. The next Sunday dinner was the harshest blow yet. Scarlett, emboldened by her win, turned the gathering into a court of public humiliation. With a cruel smile, she waved a carefully fabricated bank statement, accusing me of stealing from the family by misusing a shared credit card. The room fell silent, eyes wide with shock and confusion. I sat frozen, heart pounding, as she demanded an explanation in front of everyone. Our parents, Daniel, cousins I barely knew. The accusation wasn't just false. It was a weapon aimed straight at my reputation, threatening my standing as a responsible teacher and a trusted family member. I scrambled for words, but the weight of the moment crushed my voice. Murmurs rippled through the room, some faces clouded with doubt, others with disbelief. Scarlett's performance was precise and merciless. She had painted me as a thief, a liar, a burden. I felt my world fracture, the humiliation burning hotter than any anger. Yet beneath the shame, something deeper stirred, a quiet resolve not to be undone by cruelty masked as truth. The family's laughter and whispers were poison, but I knew this was not the end. Not yet. I would find a way to reclaim my dignity, even if the wounds were still fresh and raw. Desperation pushed me to one last plea. I called Mom late one night, my voice trembling but honest. "Can we just have one honest conversation? I need to be heard," I begged, laying bare my heart and my needs. Acknowledgement, fairness, an end to Scarlett's attacks. For a moment there was silence on the other end. Then, cold and unyielding, Mom's voice answered, "You're overreacting. Scarlett is just protecting her place." The words hit like a slap, clear and final. I asked if she would consider mediation again, hoping against hope for a crack in the wall, but she refused outright. "This family doesn't work like that. You need to accept it or stay out." Then the line went dead, the click echoing in the hollow space of my chest. That moment marked a turning point. The people who should have protected me had chosen Scarlett instead. The rejection was brutal, a line crossed that left no room for compromise. I sat in the quiet darkness, the phone slipping from my fingers, feeling the sting of isolation more keenly than ever. Yet, beneath the despair, a steely clarity began to form. If this family wouldn't see me, if they wouldn't hear me, then I would find another way to make my voice impossible to ignore. The fight was no longer just about recognition. It was about reclaiming my very self from the shadows where I'd been forced to live for so long. The silence that followed my last phone call to Mom was shattering. Her words, sharp, unyielding, cut deeper than any argument ever had. "You need to accept it or stay out." That finality echoed in the hollow space where hope once lived. After years of trying, pleading, and proving, the family had closed ranks against me. Even Daniel, who used to hover on the sidelines, now openly dismissed me as the cause of family drama. His voice, once indifferent, had sharpened into something almost hostile. He told me to stop stirring the pot, that I was making things worse. It felt like the ground beneath me cracked open, swallowing all the support I thought I had. Calls went unanswered, messages read but never replied to. The family gatherings I'd attended to keep peace became minefields I dreaded. Scarlett's influence spread like a dark tide, isolating me further. Even cousin Lisa, who once showed me warmth, now avoided eye contact, her smile strained and fleeting. At work, my mind was a whirlwind of doubt and exhaustion. I found it harder to focus on my students, the joy of teaching dimmed by the weight of betrayal. The familiar classroom noises, the sharp ring of the bell, the scribble of pencils, the soft murmur of children learning, felt distant, like a world I belonged to less and less. Ethan sat beside me on the couch one night, his hand steady over mine. "You're not alone," he said gently, but even his words couldn't erase the ache inside. I wanted to believe him, but the loneliness gnawed at my core. My memories, once a source of quiet strength, now twisted into questions. Was I really the problem? Had I imagined the cruelty, the neglect, self-doubt tangled with despair, threatening to consume me whole? Still, beneath the heavy fog of failure and isolation, a tiny spark refused to die. Something inside whispered that maybe I didn't have to fight the same way anymore. Maybe, just maybe, I could find a new path through the darkness. The night of the Christmas dinner arrived heavy with unspoken tension. The house smelled of pine and cinnamon, the air thick with the weight of forced smiles and strained laughter. The table was set immaculately, but every glance from Scarlett was a calculated jab wrapped in sweetness. I sat stiffly, aware of the eyes that barely saw me, the ears primed for my next stumble. Conversation fluttered around me like cold air, and I clung to Ethan's quiet presence at my side. As dessert was cleared away, the room's mood shifted, a dangerous stillness settling like a storm on the horizon. Then, Grandma spoke, her voice cracking through the silence with a cruel finality that stopped my breath. "You were never wanted, Taylor. Your mother almost gave you away." The words hit like a physical blow, a brutal reckoning laid bare in front of everyone. Time froze. The laughter that followed was not the warm, familial kind, but sharp, mocking, like knives slicing through my skin. My mother's sudden tears felt like salt poured on an open wound, and Scarlett's triumphant smirk was a dagger twisting deeper. The room was a gallery of amused faces and mocking eyes, and in that moment, something inside me shattered. But as the weight of their rejection pressed down, a cold clarity emerged from the wreckage. I saw the truth they'd hidden behind smiles and silence, the truth that I was never truly part of them. The humiliation stung, but beneath it, a fierce resolve blazed. I would no longer be their scapegoat, their invisible martyr. Quietly excusing myself, I fled the room, tears burning, heart pounding. Back in my bedroom, I grabbed the folder, the one collection of undeniable proof I'd kept hidden. Returning to the table, voice steady despite the storm inside, I held it out. "You mean these papers, Grandma?" The room fell into a frozen silence. Every eye locked on me, the air thick with shock and something unspoken. Fear, perhaps, that the story was about to change. That night, as the echoes of the confrontation faded, I found myself alone in my quiet house, the weight of years pressing down with unbearable heaviness. I sat in the dim glow of the lamp, the folder open on my lap, and began to sift through the memories it held. Each receipt, each email, every note a testament to sacrifice and love unreturned. The $150,000 I had quietly lent and given, the nights spent caring for Grandma, the countless times I swallowed my pride to keep the family intact. The grandmother's words cut deep, but instead of breaking me, they ignited a firestorm within. Anger surged where confusion and pain had lived, sharp and hot. For the first time, I saw the pattern clearly. The narcissism masked as love, the golden child's entitlement, the scapegoat's endless burden. I recognized how I had buried my own worth beneath layers of guilt and codependency, how I had allowed their cruelty to define me. But now, with this clarity, something shifted. I made a vow to myself. Never again would I be the family's invisible ATM or their punching bag. My secret power, the meticulous archive of truths I'd collected, was not just a shield, but a weapon. It was the key to reclaiming my life, my dignity, and my voice. In the quiet dark, I began to envision a plan, one not just for defense, but for exposure and justice. That evening, I sat with Ethan, the weight of the night's revelations heavy between us. I shared my resolve, my decision to confront the family not with tears or silence, but with strategy and strength. "I can't keep pretending I'm invisible," I told him, voice steady for the first time in months. Ethan's support was unwavering, his eyes reflecting the confidence I had lost. Together, we mapped out a plan, gather every piece of evidence, time the confrontation for maximum effect, and maintain emotional control to deny Scarlett any ammunition. He warned me of Scarlett's fierce resistance, but I felt ready. The first step was organizing the documentation, confirming the hidden liabilities, and preparing for a public reckoning. My posture shifted from weary victim to calculated strategist. The fire inside that once flickered timidly now blazed fiercely, illuminating a path forward. This was no longer about survival. It was about reclaiming my narrative in full view of the family and community. I would make them see me, hear me, and reckon with the truth they had long ignored. For the first time, I felt the weight of my own power, and I was ready to wield it. I began by tracing every thread of support I'd ever given the family, determined to map the true extent of their dependence on me. Sitting at my kitchen table, surrounded by receipts, bank statements, and loan documents, I felt a mix of exhaustion and clarity wash over me. It wasn't just the quiet $150,000 I'd lent over the years for emergencies. The money was threaded into nearly every corner of their lives. My name was on utility accounts I'd barely acknowledged, co-signed loans for mom and dad that I'd long forgotten about, and countless smaller expenses I'd absorbed without question. Each piece of paper felt like a revelation, a silent testament to how deeply entwined I was in their financial stability. One afternoon, I met with the lawyer Ethan had helped me find. She was sharp, no nonsense, and surprisingly encouraging. She explained how these financial ties could become my leverage, especially the co-signed loans that legally bound me to responsibility if the family defaulted. Even more, she mentioned the possibility of contesting the family estate, given the undisclosed financial contributions I'd made. Until then, I'd never thought my sacrifices could translate into power. The idea was dizzying. Later, when I dug through old emails, I stumbled on a thread between Scarlett and a family friend, where she admitted, almost in panic, that she feared what I knew. Her words were chilling. If Taylor ever figures out the truth, everything falls apart. That fear was a crack in their armor. I realized then how much their fragile family structure depended on my invisibility and compliance. Suddenly, the power imbalance wasn't just abstract, it was concrete, and I held the map. I started organizing everything with new purpose, labeling folders meticulously: receipts, contracts, text messages, each a building block of my case. The process was methodical, almost soothing, a reclamation of control I hadn't felt in years. My confidence began to swell, fed by the stark proof of my worth that no one could deny. For once, my invisibility was a choice. I could step out of the shadows on my own terms. The weight of years of quiet suffering began to lift, replaced by a simmering determination to rewrite the story of my place in this family. At the same time, I knew I had to keep my guard up. To the outside world, especially at our weekly Sunday dinners, I wore my calmest mask, composed, polite, quietly observant. No sudden moves, no hints of what I was building beneath the surface. I listened carefully, noting every word Scarlett said, every glance she threw my way, every subtle shift in my parents' expressions. The house was a minefield, but I stayed steady, collecting evidence with the patience of a hunter. At home, I spent hours sharpening my arsenal, creating timelines of financial support, logging humiliations and manipulations in my journal, and reviewing legal documents Ethan's lawyer had helped me secure. Copies of wills, property titles, loan agreements, all carefully cataloged. Ethan was my silent partner, helping me plot the logistics of confrontation. We planned for witnesses, prepared for possible backlash, and even discussed media involvement if it came to that. The anticipation was heavy, a constant thrum beneath my skin, but I kept it locked away. Unknown to me, hidden deep in an old family Bible tucked away in the attic, a letter waited, a letter that would soon shift the entire battlefield. But for now, I held my silence tightly, watching, waiting, preparing. The calm before the storm was a fragile thing, but I was learning to control it. My quiet withdrawal was not defeat, but strategy. Every measured step was a promise. When the time came, my family would no longer be able to ignore the truth. I would be seen not as the scapegoat or the invisible sister, but as the force they had reckoned with for far too long. One rainy afternoon, while sorting through Mom's old belongings in the attic, an area I'd avoided for years, I stumbled across a sealed envelope addressed to me in my grandfather's unmistakable handwriting. My hands trembled as I broke the seal and unfolded the fragile paper inside. It was a will, hidden from sight, sealed away like a buried secret. My heart pounded as I read the words that upended everything I thought I knew about my place in the family. According to the will, I was named the primary heir to a substantial portion of the family estate, more than $500,000 in property and investments. Scarlett's share was explicitly smaller, and tied to conditions I'd never heard of. Her behavior, her support of me, the rightful heir. The implications hit me like a thunderclap. This document explained so much. The favoritism, the hostility, Scarlett's desperate need to discredit me. It was clear now that Mom had hidden this will to protect Scarlett's undeserved privilege. I felt a surge of vindication and fierce urgency. This wasn't just about financial support anymore. It was about justice, recognition, and reclaiming what was rightfully mine. My hands shook as I called Ethan, sharing the discovery in a voice barely containing its tremor. We immediately contacted my lawyer, who confirmed the will's authenticity and the legal weight it carried. The air in our home seemed to crackle with possibility. I could almost see the family's facade starting to crumble in my mind's eye. The next Sunday dinner would be different. This time, I wouldn't be the silent victim. I was armed not only with evidence of my sacrifices, but with irrefutable proof of my rightful claim. The stakes had never been higher, and the room for error was razor thin. Yet, beneath the fear and anticipation, a fierce flame burned, a promise that this time, I would not be silenced or overshadowed. The truth was mine to wield, and I would do so in full view of everyone who had ever doubted me. The first step was to change the dynamic quietly, to pull back my financial lifeline without warning. I stopped paying the utility bills in my name, revoked my co-signatures on loans, and silently halted emergency funds I'd long been the family's secret ATM for. I didn't announce it. Scarlett, blinded by her arrogance, didn't connect these changes to the hidden will or my growing resolve. Instead, she blamed others. Daniel, the billing company, even my husband Ethan at one point. The family's financial stability started to wobble almost imperceptibly, but the cracks were there. At work, I began gathering character references, quietly enlisting colleagues and friends who could vouch for my integrity and strength. I knew Scarlett and the family would try to smear me once I revealed the truth. I needed to build a shield of support beyond the family's walls. Meanwhile, I maintained my calm facade at every gathering, careful not to betray my plans or emotions. The phones got cut off unexpectedly. Overdue notices piled up, and murmurs of confusion spread quietly among family members. Scarlett's anxiety grew, her usual confidence shaken by a threat she couldn't name. Yet she remained oblivious to the fact that I was the architect of this slow unraveling. I watched as their world shifted beneath their feet, silent but deliberate. The house of cards was tilting, and though no one yet knew who had nudged it, I was ready. I held my composure tightly, letting the consequences build quietly beneath the surface. The time was coming when their carefully constructed lies would collapse, and I would be the one standing in the rubble, no longer invisible, no longer silenced. My first move was made. The game had begun. The room felt heavy that Sunday evening, the air thick with an uneasy tension I could almost taste. The chatter was forced, smiles tight, eyes darting nervously as if sensing the storm about to break. I sat quietly, hands folded on my lap, the sealed envelope, the will, heavy in my grasp. Ethan sat beside me, his steady presence a quiet anchor amid the swirling undercurrents. When the moment came, I stood slowly, the quiet shifting to a hush as all eyes turned toward me. I cleared my throat and held up the document, the paper crisp and official. I know I've been treated as if I'm invisible, as if my sacrifices don't exist, I began, voice calm but unwavering. But this, I said, tapping the will, is the truth they tried to hide. The room fell into stunned silence, Scarlett's confident mask flickering, her face paling. This document names me as the primary heir, I continued, my gaze sweeping across the family. My parents, my brother, the extended relatives seated around. Not only that, but the financial support I've provided over the years, over $150,000, is documented here. Each receipt, each transaction, every instance they've erased from our family story. I opened the folder carefully, revealing excerpts of emails, bank statements, and journal entries. For years, I've been the one keeping this family afloat, while being dismissed and humiliated. Scarlett tried to interrupt, her voice rising in panic, but I raised my hand, firm and deliberate. "No more lies," I said, locking eyes with her. "No more humiliation. This isn't about money. It's about respect, truth, and finally being seen." The room was electric with disbelief. My parents exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable but shaken. I felt a tide turn, the invisible sister now the center of attention, the golden child's facade cracking under the weight of truth. This was my champagne moment, the moment I reclaimed my voice and my dignity in full view of everyone who had tried to erase me. Scarlett's perfect illusion shattered before my eyes, her usual charm replaced by a flicker of desperation as whispers filled the room. The following days were a whirlwind. Family members, once silent or blind, began to question her. My parents, confronted with undeniable proof, could no longer dismiss my words as mere bitterness. Scarlett's phone buzzed constantly, messages flooding in. Pleas, apologies, promises to change. "I'm sorry, Taylor. I never meant to hurt you," one text read, dripping with insincerity. But I was no longer the girl who forgave to keep peace. I responded with measured grace, setting clear boundaries. No manipulation, no false promises. Rumors spread beyond our family circle. The community, once dazzled by Scarlett's charm, now looked with wary eyes. Friends and acquaintances began to distance themselves, sensing the truth beneath the surface. Even some of Scarlett's staunchest allies started to pull away, their loyalty shaken by the cracks in her story. I watched quietly as her world began to crumble, a slow but relentless unraveling of the toxic hierarchy that had ruled my life for decades. Each desperate call, each frantic message she sent, was met with calm refusal. I had gained control, and with it, a power I never imagined I'd hold. The poison she had wielded for so long was now turning inward, dissolving the walls she'd built around herself. Scarlett's final attempts to regain control were as predictable as they were pitiful. She unleashed a barrage of flying monkeys, cousins, family friends, even church members, tasked with pressuring me into silence. Whispers of greed and betrayal spread like wildfire, cruel rumors designed to isolate and discredit me. Legal threats followed, accusations that I had forged documents, though no evidence ever surfaced. She tried to sever my ties to allies, cutting off communication lines and sowing distrust. But I was prepared. Backed by legal counsel, I met each attack with calm facts and quiet dignity. Ethan stood beside me unwavering, his support a shield against the storm. Her manipulations faltered and failed, each attempt only deepening her isolation. The family began to see her true colors, the orchestrator of pain rather than the innocent victim. The once untouchable golden child was now the source of the family's fracture. I felt a quiet strength grow within me as Scarlett's reign of manipulation crumbled. This was not just a personal victory, but a breaking of a cycle that had chained me for years. The scars remained, but so did the fierce resilience that had brought me here. For the first time, I was free, not just from her, but from the weight of invisibility and silence that had defined me for too long. Months passed, and the house that once echoed with tension now hummed softly with peace. I sat at the dinner table surrounded by a small, carefully chosen circle: Ethan, a few family members who had reconciled honestly, and the quiet warmth of genuine connection. The family home was legally mine, a tangible symbol of the boundaries I had set and the respect I had earned. Scarlett remained distant, grappling with the fallout of her actions, the consequences of her choices closing in. I reflected on the painful journey, from the invisible martyr to the empowered woman standing before them all. I no longer sought approval or validation. I commanded respect through integrity and truth. Ethan's steady presence beside me was a testament to the partnership and strength I had found. Together, we had transformed years of dysfunction into a catalyst for growth and justice. That evening, as I prepared an honest, loving Christmas dinner, the scent of pine and cinnamon filled the air, not as a reminder of past pain, but as a promise of hope and renewal. The future was no longer a weight, but a canvas, open to the possibility of genuine family bonds built on respect, not favoritism or exploitation. I smiled quietly, knowing that I had reclaimed my story, my dignity, and above all, my freedom.